Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Energy News Beat podcast. My name's Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. I got a really quirky one for you today. This one is absolutely wonderful. To tee you up just a little bit for our listeners before I introduce our guest. Energy poverty is about producing the lowest cost kilowatt per hour to everyone on the planet with the least amount of impact on the environment. We cannot get carbon net zero without natural gas, without nuclear, and eventually when the technology is there for renewables, I don't care what kind of power we use. But that brings up our next guest. We have Mike Pollock, and I got to read his title here on his LinkedIn. Absolutely cool. And it is astrophysicist who specializes in quantum chromodynamic. I'll have him pronounce it, being from
Dynamics.
Yeah, thank you. Bless you. And Quark Plasma Reactor. So welcome, Mike. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm doing fine. I appreciate you having me on.
I'll tell you what, I've been taking a look at your stuff, and I invited you on the podcast because of your LinkedIn posts. And what is how are you doing this, or where is your mission, and what are you seeing out there? Is a quirky reactor or quark reactor? What is it?
Well, obviously, we've been working on fusion since 1956, and America alone has put in $36 billion into trying to figure out how it works.
Right.
And it's not working. And there's something else out there that's powering the black holes, stars, and planets for billions of years. And I think we've kind of covered the fact that fusion is not it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is against what 100% of the scientific community believes, but fusion is nucleosynthesis, which is the creation of a heavier element with two lighter ones. And this reaction requires energy,
Mm-hmm.
In every other aspect. But when it comes to fusion, we have made it, create amazing amounts of energy. And it's all because of the Big Bang Theory that we believe that. And
fission and fusion is putting them together, fission is pulling them apart, and that's
yes.
So there's always a big fear. I think the fear is overstated in fusion reactors. We've been running them in aircraft carriers and everything else for years. The only downside is the spent waste. But with a fission reactor, you're going to get you get to use other waste. Is that correct?
You mean a fusion reactor?
Right.
Or
yes.
Well,
yes.
you use tritium with fusion,
right.
And there's some really big problems with tritium that nobody really seems to focus on. First of all, it's almost $100,000 a gram.
Wow.
It's up to $100,000 a gram, and it also is radioactively dangerous.
Right.
So, you already have some big problems with trying to use that as a fuel.
Okay.
Recently, there was a leak at a nuclear fission plant that leaked out 300,000 gallons of tritium laced water, and the whole place went, the town went crazy. And it's because it's dangerous. It's got a half-life of 12 and a half years, and it really is not a viable fuel for fusion.
Well, that was almost a setup, because as we look at the Quark Plasma Reactor, and as I have my producer take a look at this, I'll make sure they have your LinkedIn article here. And the diagram shows a Quark Plasma Reactor, and you have the red arrow. For our podcast listeners, it is a diagram, and there's actually hydrogen fuel at the core. Can you explain how all this works?
Yes. From fission, you break up atoms to make energy.
Right.
And a quark plasma reactor is matter broken up as much as it can be into quarks.
Okay.
And when this happens, there is the catalyst for the energy becomes the space that we are living in, which is called 0-point energy.
Okay.
And we don't, the Big Bang Theory is not letting us understand what 0-point energy is, because when the universe was created, it was created out of quark gluon plasma. And that was all the universe was made of. It did not include space itself, which is why we have dark matter and we don't understand dark matter. And what becomes the catalyst for this is the field of space, which is absolute zero. It causes light to bend, and it gives different forms of electromagnetic radiation different speed limits, which one of my posts explains. When the house gets blown up by the hydrogen bomb,
Right.
and the house gets completely burned before it moves at all by the gamma radiation and the X-ray radiation. And then you see the visible light hit the house. So you don't see the visible light hit the house until it's been fried, and then it gets exploded by the force of the atmosphere. But it's this field of space that we have forgotten about by making the Big Bang Theory that created dark matter and is the catalyst for quark plasma. If you ask any fusion scientist what the catalyst is when we turn our electricity off, there's no answer. No sign. I've never heard any fusion scientists explain what is going to take over when the electricity gets cut off. And without a natural catalyst to take over, there will never be any energy from it. So that, in other words, the Big Bang Theory is what created us to believe in fusion. And unfortunately, I'm saying that it's wrong. The Big Bang Theory.
Well, the only thing I knew about the Big Bang Theory is it is that TV show. And I was always wondering, because I kind of liked it the first few years, but when you're talking about hydrogen fuel, is it the hydrogen that we talk about now? Is it a different form of hydrogen fuel?
Well, it's plain. The advantage of a quark plasma reactor is if you don't have to go and use tritium, you can just use the cheap, plentiful hydrogen that is very cheap. Right. And the whole thing you're trying to do is break it up into its quarks. You're not trying to fuse anything. You're trying to break it up, just like you break atoms up in a fission reactor. Wow. And hydrogen is the most vulnerable element, to space. So you could probably break any element up, but when you have hydrogen, you already have an element that's already very vulnerable. Right. And when for instance, when lightning strikes, it creates gamma rays, and scientists do not understand where these gamma rays come from. And that's because it doesn't understand dark matter and the field of space. But what is happening is that lightning is breaking up the atoms in our atmosphere and creating gamma rays. And when gamma rays are created, quarks are being separated. Now, our atmosphere snuffs it out immediately because the quarks immediately fuse with the atoms in our atmosphere, but the electricity will break that hydrogen up and will be placed in a vacuum where there are no atoms for it to reattach to, and the field of space will go through the walls of the reactor and keep the quarks apart.
Okay. My head exploded, which
Yeah.
is, I'm over here I'm trying to put all this together.
Yeah.
Where are we on the technology portion of this? I got to interview Thomas Jam from Copenhagen Atomics, and he's got a thorium reactor that they're able to start rolling out, I believe this year. And I'm trying to get him back on the show to see how they're doing. And they're putting theirs on really the small modular reactor space so they can build one a day. Now, where are we on, is there even one in pilot testing? How do we go from this great conversation to production? And I know that's just even a wow,
Yeah. Well, if they're trying to fuse thorium or whatever they are, I just have that one eternal question: what is going to be the catalyst for their energy?
Right.
It's the most important question in all of physics, and it's directly related to it's directly related to quantum gravity.
Okay.
We don't understand quantum gravity, and they're all intermixed. Quantum gravity is directly related to this catalyst.
Okay. So if some company wanted to visit with you about this, you could share your opinions and everything else and try to get you rolling down the road. Is that a fair statement?
I would love to do that. The problem is the education is completely hell-bent on getting fusion to work, and it's hard to convince anybody that it is not going to work, even if it takes another 30 years. I mean, we've been trying for so long to do it, and if you base everything on tests and observations, it's not good. It's used a lot of money, a lot of time, and unfortunately, our planet really needs us to figure it out, and it's not happening.
I couldn't agree more. And hydrogen, I love hydrogen. There's some problems with hydrogen. When you take a look at, the Hindenburg, I'm kidding, but I mean, you take a look at, it takes a lot of water to make hydrogen. And when they have all the different, they have the rainbow effect of, is it natural gas? Is it gray? Is it green? Is it blue? And you try to sit back and I can understand that a lot easier than some of your conversation, Mike. So, in the blue, it's like the natural gas version of it, so that you can use natural gas. And, I think that that's the cleanest, personal opinion. Then you recapture the heat and generate off of that. But there's some real issues with hydrogen. I would love to see hydrogen fuel cells before I would EVs. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, the hydrogen is there's something to it. We have to look out in space and we see stars and black holes and planets live for billions of years with no help. And what we have to realize, what is doing that?
Right.
Of course, obviously, everybody says it's fusion because, the only thing that the Big Bang gave scientists to use was hydrogen and gravity.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the quark gluon plasma was created and it cooled to hydrogen. So scientists, the only choice they had was to take the hydrogen and say, well, I guess just gravity squeezed the hydrogen together and made all the energy. The Big Bang Theory is what forces them to think that fusion is the answer.
I'm sitting here, Mike, and every time, I'm sorry, the Big Bang Theory, I just see Sheldon doing something stupid. Every time you say that, I have to pull myself back into the conversation.
Yeah.
My apologies if you see me rolling in the floor, kind of thinking something stupid about Sheldon. I got to admit,
Yeah.
the writers on the Big Bang Theory were pretty funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, back. Let me regress back into this conversation. Um, how big or small can you make a quark plasma reactor? I mean,
You could make them, you could make them power a whole city, or you could
right.
make them power a house or a car.
No way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You all you need is a place with a vacuum to apply the hydrogen, the quarks. And I can't wait to build the first one. Obviously, I can't do it myself, but what we're going to see is the ability of this to create electricity, plug in electricity from these things.
Right.
And it's the exact same concept as lightning that our Earth creates.
Right.
It is the exact same concept. The dark matter comes in as the catalyst to the reaction, and that dark matter is coming in to hit the clouds, but the clouds are not
Right.
grounded. So basically, I believe that space is an extremely pressurized, absolute zero field of sterile electron neutrinos.
All right.
And when they come, when our core manipulates space with its core, they come in from space to cause gravity, but they also come in and hit the clouds, and they reform into electrons in the clouds, which is exactly how the Quark Plasma Reactor will create electricity.
Nice.
The clouds build up so many extra electrons that they have to release them. And this explains why there's lightning in volcanic ash clouds, because there's no water in a volcanic ash clouds. And scientists do not understand why there's lightning in volcanic ash clouds and not in regular water-based clouds.
Let me ask a stupid question, which is
No
typical.
stupid questions.
Oh, well, you haven't heard mine yet.
Yeah.
So in a natural gas or coal, we always heat, water, or you have those kind of things to get the steam, to get the electricity. Am I understanding this right? You don't even have to have something like that in order for this thing to generate electricity?
Nope, you will not. It will create electricity just like lightning.
That's what I was
It'll
thinking.
create heat also. And because,
Wow.
yeah, it'll create heat as well that we can use to create steam. But the main goal it will have is to create electricity, because that's the holy grail, to not have to
Oh, yeah.
heat water to steam, turn a turbine,
If
it'll
these
directly do it.
if these reactors could be made much like the thorium reactors, that Copenhagen Atomics makes, it'd be pretty cool to have them on a very quality controlled assembly line, to make modular reactors or even use them in trucks. This could be an absolute wonderful story. We need to get me, you, and Elon to talk about this, because I think this would be a wonderful. I'm going to tag him. He doesn't know who,
Yeah,
but
I've tried, believe me. I've tried. I don't get anything. I don't
Uh-oh.
get anything from anybody.
So you're the Rodney Dangerfield of quark plasma and
Yeah.
physics. Okay, I like that. See, I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of the podcast world. We get
Yeah. I would consider myself the Galileo of science right now, because I'm trying to tell the world that he was trying to tell the world that the earth is not the center of the universe.
right.
And I'm trying to tell the world that the universe cannot be created, because every law in the book gets broken with this. You don't know where the matter came from. You don't know why it expanded. You don't know
Right.
where the energy came from. I mean, it's, Edwin Hubble discovered the galaxies expanding.
Right.
He did not discover the universe expanding, and nobody has told this, but he did not he did not agree with the expanding universe. Everybody says, well, Hubble discovered the expanding universe. No, he did not. He discovered the expanding galaxies, and he was against the expanding universe because it broke all the laws. And Einstein once visited Hubble and tried to convince him, you discovered the universe expanding. He said, no, I didn't. And he did not, Einstein did not convince him, and rightfully so. So unfortunately, that was, I hate to say it, but assuming the expanding universe was the biggest scientific mistake ever made. It really was.
If Elon was going to ask you a question, what would you say? He goes, let's pretend I'm Elon. I could do a better Putin imitation than I can Elon. I have no clue how to even get to his level. But let's say Elon asks you, says, Mike, what do you need?
Oh, this is easy. Yeah, it's easy because like, say for instance, ITER in Europe, it's like billions and billions of dollars on a giant, spread of buildings and all this. And they're not building the reactor. They're just trying to make fusion work,
Right.
And I'm ready to build the reactor, and I'll answer your question. All you need is a steel sphere. It doesn't matter how big it is. It's going to be hollow, and it's going to have very thick walls. So right there, how much is that going to be? It's nothing.
Well, if the government does it, it's going to have a huge, markup,
yeah.
a lot of graft, a lot of, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. But no matter how much they mark it up, it still is going to be insignificant compared to fusion. It'll be, and you need hydrogen, which is, it virtually costs nothing. And the hardest part about the reactor will be the electricity needed to break the hydrogen into quarks. And lightning does that with about 30,000 amps. So fusion reactors are using 1 million amps right now.
Right.
And probably more than that. And we don't need anything like that to produce them. And also, say for instance, we're going to make a quark plasma reactor for a house.
Right.
Well, a pound of it won't even be a pound of hydrogen. It'll probably be more like a half a pound or a quarter of a pound. When it gets broken up,
Right.
and space will not let the quarks get back together, it is going to create energy for probably 2 years. I mean, what I'm explaining doesn't sound logical, but then again, we got to look out at space and look at these stars and black holes and everything that have been living for billions of years without any help. It's like that's how magical this reaction is.
So, in a space travel kind of a thing, if once you got one of these, this makes more sense to try to travel to Mars using a Quark Plasma Reactor as opposed to anything that we've got now.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about the UFOs we've obviously been seeing a lot. And one of them, I swear, pulled up next to the jet, the military jet, and the guys were all freaking out. And I swear to God, this object, or I mean this UFO, it sat there and it spun, and I swear the aliens in that thing were saying, look, here is how we move our spacecraft.
Right.
If you see it,
Boy, if you could
you can,
shoot that link, I'd love to put it in the show notes. So
yeah. Well, there's a whole 60 minutes, segment on it. And,
okay, cool.
yeah, if you look up 60 Minutes UFOs, they show the guys, 4 or 5 different people that are just,
Right.
they came face to face with these things. And then one of the comments was, we've seen them every day for years. And the commentator was like, wait a second, every day for years? And he's like, yeah. So they're everywhere, and they are manipulating space with quarks, not necessarily with a quark plasma reactor, but they have found some way to use quarks, separated quarks, to manipulate space and create a force out of it.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a
I actually know someone who I trust extremely well, who I can't remember the year, but he was off of Florida, was overtaken by an orb, and it came out, and his wingman click click. Did you see that?
yeah.
No, they didn't really want to report it back then. And
No, they didn't. That's the point. And the people in the 60 Minutes interview, they were like, should we say anything? And it's like, they didn't want to. Their careers could be in jeopardy.
right,
They didn't want to look crazy.
right.
But now it's just irrefutable proof that they're out there, and they're coming here from somewhere in our galaxy.
Well,
We
on
got
the
400 billion solar systems in our galaxy, and like I've said 100 times before, they could easily have started life a million years before us. So
well, my personal beliefs are always that it was created, and so I do believe in God and I believe in Jesus, but there are a lot of things we don't know, flat out. I have
yeah,
no idea, and I'm always open to try to listen, because God created doctors, he
yeah,
created physicists.
yeah,
So, it's not a question of whether or not how it comes around or how you get that knowledge. It's
yeah.
and open for discussion instead of like a TV series sitcom.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to talk about that point, because when I say that the Big Bang Theory did not happen,
Right.
it makes me sound like an atheist automatically. And I know that turns off a lot of people, but that is not my case.
Okay.
I have I believe everything was already here. when the Big Bang happened. And I believe that the Big Bang was simply two objects colliding in an already existing universe. Our universe essentially turned itself into a particle collider that we have here on Earth. And the two pieces had the mass of the observable galaxies, and the pressure and friction and speed of this collision put the matter that was just a rock that you pick up on the road, it turned it into quark plasma shrapnel. That's why the galaxies are expanding, because they're shrapnel. And as with any other collision that you ever see, that it's not perfect. One part goes this speed, one goes this speed. So if you assume that the whole universe is expanding, then it's going to look like it's accelerating.
Right.
Because some parts are going to be going faster than others. And my point about the Big Bang Theory and stuff, and being an atheist, not being an atheist, is that God could have just easily have created the universe a trillion years ago, and decided 13.8 billion years ago to slam the two objects together. How do we know what he really, we don't.
Mike, that is an absolute great answer. And I do like that, because we don't know. And when you talk about the asteroid and everything, the rock being shrapnel, that'd be like trying to go hunting with Dick Cheney as he shoots you. You have to worry about where that shrapnel is coming from and who you go hunting with. That had nothing to do with that conversation, but it was funny. So
yeah. Well, we have to figure out why they're expanding. And if you create the universe, you have no reason, you don't have any way to know. You don't have any way to know how they got their energy. And that's why they had to pick fusion as the reason that we have our energy. But if you assume everything was already here, following the first law of thermodynamics, then you have an answer for everything. So
that's nuts.
That's why I just wish we didn't jump to conclusions when Hubble found the galaxies expanding, and we really did. We jumped to conclusions, and now the Big Bang Theory is, as you know, a complete fact. I mean, there's no theory about it. So,
well, I tell you what, Mike, we just about got 2 more minutes here on our podcast. And I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you stepping on here and really having a very, what I thought, fun conversation about energy that I had not thought of. And so when I was reading your articles on LinkedIn, I was kind of like, all right, I got to figure out a little bit more. And my wife calls me quirky all the time. And I was like, hey, I get to talk to this guy about Quark Plasma Reactor. And she's like, you're too quirky. You would not have any idea what to ask him. So thank you so much for stopping by. Tell us how people can get a hold of you.
Well, look me up on LinkedIn. You can. I'd love to. I could go into detail on many aspects, like climate change, and I can describe why it's so hot and so cold. We have a lot of cold records happening, but LinkedIn is basically where I go.
Sounds great. I'll have all that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Mike, for stopping by. And if Elon wants to get a hold of us, I'll tell you what, let's have a podcast with Elon.
Oh, I would do anything for that. That would be great.
I believe I'd even travel to his office. So
yeah. Oh, I would too.
Yeah. Lord. Oh yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? All right.
Yeah.
Hey, For that, subscribe, like, pass this along to all your friends. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners. You can find all these on energynewsbeat.com. Podcasts are available on Apple. They're available on Spotify, Podbay, Listen, all the other ones that are out there. Thanks, and we will see you next time.